Good morning, everyone. We have quite a group this morning. I'm glad to see you all here. Thank you for coming. The coffee talks for the Venture Intern Program are a part of the program that we implemented a couple of years ago with the purpose of providing some supplemental training to the students and providing a way for us to engage both the students and the supervisors at the same time. So for those, I think everybody knows me, I'm Deb Williams. I work in the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation. My colleague Madison Sutton is here. She's been instrumental in running the Venture Intern Program this year. And we're super excited to have Cari Humphry here to deliver our first coffee talk. The whole idea behind this is to provide a foundation, lots of new interns new to the entrepreneurship world, and glad to provide a sort of a foundation for the types of entrepreneurship. And Cari's story really highlights a lot of them, just because we call her a unicorn. She's kind of a jack of all trades. She's an artist and an accountant and a former entrepreneur and entrepreneurial in her job now. Cari's our Director of Creative Services in the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And we are super lucky to have her. She really helps us in so many ways, but really instrumental in telling the story of what we do and building the brand of OEI. And we're super grateful to have her here today to share her story with us. Lots of entrepreneurs on the call, so that's super helpful. And I think this is not designed to be a lecture type situation. It is very much a conversation. And so Cari has some slides that we'll go through, and then there will be, that'll take probably the first portion of this talk, and then the second portion will really have some dialogue around the foundations of entrepreneurship and how it applies to the areas that you guys are working in right now. So be thinking about as we go through this morning, kind of how this connects to the startup or the institution that you're working with for you students. So I'm going to turn it over to Cari. Cari, thank you so much for being here. We're grateful to have you. And do you want us to share your slides, or do you want to share them?
I think I can share them. Thanks, Deb. Good morning. Yes, it's always really awesome to have somebody like Deb introduce you, Deb specifically, except for I think she sets the bar pretty high in expectations. I'm not sure. I'll do my best to at least live up to a little bit of it. Thanks, Deb. That was a great intro. All right, so welcome to Entrepreneurship 101. This talk is going to be briefly about a lot of probably mistakes that I could say, or what I wish I'd known. I know Sarah's has used that title, so I just duplicated that because it was really appropriate. I think that is a pretty accurate tagline for most entrepreneurs' journey and multiple journeys. So we're going to dive right in. Deb gave me a great intro. At the Hub or at the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation, my role is Director of Creative Services, which means I get to tell and talk to students and audiences abroad about all the cool things that you guys are doing and try to communicate all the things that are happening on our campus to the broader ecosystem and get students plugged in, which I love doing. My story, I would call this, I labeled it an accidental entrepreneur. So Deb touched on it briefly. My background, my degree is in accounting, and I worked in public accounting for Deloitte & Touche, local CPA. I've worked in for the Walton Arts Center as a finance manager, some governmental accounting, and as a financial consultant for years. Again, total of 12 years. In the back of my, I guess my history, I started off as an architecture major. And so I always have had a interest and a just desire to make art. So I started painting when I was working, doing some consulting work, and not just painting. I took painting classes in college, but I started painting regularly. And I had some success in that. And then I'm gonna talk about the two different entrepreneurial endeavors that I guess I stumbled upon. And yes, hindsight is, 2020, obviously, but I guess my path being University of Arkansas, um, accounting degree, art, and then this down here at the bottom, Red Hill Gallery and Homewares, was an actual brick and mortar store that I opened with a business partner, and we had for 6 years. And so what I'm going to focus on really is like what Deb talked about, the foundations to to entrepreneurship. But I think I would say that my experience, and I don't know how many other, definitely our organizations, our support organizations that are on the phone, and business owners and startups would say that they may have backed into their entrepreneurial activities and skipped some steps. And there's obviously learning from mistakes is what we, I think, at the hub, and if you've been in there at any of our talks, and you can see signs on the walls, that is foundational to the entrepreneurial experience. So to start off with, I painted a cow, and then someone bought that cow. So I painted a cow because I wanted to paint a cow. And I don't know if we have any art students. Deb, I don't know if you've been able to look at the chat.
I don't see any art students, but I could be wrong.
Well, I painted one cow because I wanted to. I'm sure whether you major in it or not, there's probably a lot of you that are creating art in some way. And if you get some positive reinforcement that, wow, someone actually was willing to spend money on this. The first cow I painted was not this cow. It was really terrible. And the person willing to buy that, I don't know, she was an older lady, and maybe she didn't have excellent vision. I don't know, but she was willing to buy it. So it encouraged me to paint another cow, and then another cow. And I just started scaling cows, I guess is what I would say. I started painting cows over and over again, and I could paint cows in my sleep because someone was willing to pay for them. So I didn't identify a market ahead of time. I just liked and wanted to paint a cow. So I thought, I'll just do that again over and over again. Um, and then that prompted me and a friend to say, hey, wouldn't it be great if we had like a store that had art and stuff, local stuff? We feel like that would be fun. At the time, it was 2010, and there was, I think there was probably trends going that way, but there was flea markets in our area. But there was definitely some like interior decor that that was leaning towards vintage and eclectic and stuff, but we just thought it'd be fun mostly. Mostly we just wanted to be, Meg Ryan and You've Got Mail or something, like some shopkeeper. And I'm not encouraging that, but this is sometimes just kind of what you want to do gets in the way of, making smart business decisions. Um, so we opened up Red Hill Gallery and Homewares in 2010, and we learned really quick. It was so hard to make money. It was a lot more profitable for me to just sit at home, paint a cow, 2 or 3 cow paintings a week. Like my overhead, that's the word for like, the amount of money you're paying for your studio or your office or your shop, and then employees and all of those other costs. My overhead, I had a studio in my house. It was so low. It was, and I enjoyed doing it. And this was hard. And I would say that, we didn't quite do enough research on the front end as to like what what it would take to break even, what it would take to make this profitable. And so I would say here's where the really accidental part came in. It came into play with some, oh, of course, sorry, hold on. I have the wanting to update my system sign. Hold on. Okay, so the accidental part came into play when we stumbled upon a product, and it's here on the left, Annie Sloan chalk paint. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of it, but it was a rage. I know Madison's shaking her head, and we probably talked about this. So it fit with our the feel for our shop, and we found out about this product kind of cutting edge, like before we were the first retailer, I would say. We were definitely the first retailer in Arkansas, and we had an exclusive territory to this paint in the whole state for the first, 2 years that the paint was on the market. And this paint had checked all the boxes. It was consumable, it was in high demand, and it was easy to use, and we could make a profit on it. And so we brought that paint on board, and that was, I would say, our bread and butter for our store over the next 6 years. And we were able to I'm going to click that. We were able to sell the store. We had some equity in the store, and blue sky, there's still value in the store. So we were able to sell the retail shop in 2016 for a significant profit, which was great because we'd also been able to pay ourselves over the 6 years, but mostly due to that one product. Lessons learned from that. So that's one traditional route of a startup. And this is called like a small or a solopreneur or a sole proprietor is what the IRS calls it. So if you hear somebody using that word, you're just a business structure run by a single individual. Yes, I had a business partner, but we were set up as sole proprietors. There's some advantages. You make all the decisions, you make all the money, and you have all the risk. And that was what we learned pretty quick. So there's a lot of value in this business structure. And I don't know, Deb, if many of the startups, if there's many of them that operate that are in our VIP program this semester that operate as sole proprietors or as individual business owners. But they probably have some great insights that they could share with, especially their venture intern, about this business structure and about the pros and cons. There's lots of hats that you wear. You are the CEO, you're the marketing director, you are the janitor, the accountant, the social media manager, and you are your own admin assistant. And you can actually hire for all of those, but you have to be able to pay those people. And that is, it's a lot. And so those things, we kind of stumbled upon those realities, and it was a lot of fun and learned a whole lot of things. But what we love about this program for venture interns, and I would say a lot of the programs we offer, a lot of our partners in the community, Startup Junkie, there is great resources for you as a student and as a business startup that can help you launch this and can give you some of this information ahead of time. The hard thing is actually accepting those realities when you're sitting in front of Jeff Amrine and he's telling you how much startup costs you might need to actually believe him. So we kind of were accidental in any successes we had. And I think there was, now that my position here at the Hub and going through the trainings and watching startups evolve and watching student startups evolve and be successful, I realized there were so many resources that I did not take advantage of. And first of all, I never would have even thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I wouldn't have used that word. So I would like to think that we all probably struggled defining that word. And I know Madison and Deb are on this call, and if they remember last, I think it was not this past year Hillfest, but the last, 2019 Hillfest, that we were all up at a table and we had a dry erase board out that said, I mean, what did it say? What is innovation or what is entrepreneurship? But we also asked every student that came up to the table, how would you define entrepreneurship? And it was a learning for us that almost every student at every age and every, season in their college career was uncomfortable defining entrepreneur or just said, I have no idea what that word means. And I think that was definitely a moment for our team to realize that it's a scary word and it means a lot of different things to people and it's intimidating. So these are two definitions that I found that one is really basic and probably the old school. What is an entrepreneur? It's a person who organizes and operates a business or businesses, taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so. And then a more recent definition that I found, this is defining entrepreneurship actually, but an entrepreneur is a person who works in this field, but that entrepreneurship is actually the creation or the extraction of value. And with this definition, entrepreneurship can be viewed as change, generally entailing risk beyond what is normally encountered in starting a business. So there's also this definition at the end implies there's other values than just simply economic ones. And we know there's a lot of interest in social innovation and we've talked as a team how that threads throughout all of our programs, and we see that in a lot of businesses, that mentality. But I thought it was interesting that both of these definitions, the key to them is risk, and I think that we all have a different threshold for risk, and so some of these self-awareness qualities as you're going into or thinking about or find yourself in the midst of a startup or an entrepreneurial endeavor is it's good to know like who you're working with and what their level of risks are and what they're comfortable with. You might have a business partner that has a different level than you do. So I would say in my situation, there was a lot of, like I said, accidental things, but it doesn't have to be that way. And so I don't know, I would like at this point, I was gonna get a little feedback and y'all can put it in the chat or you can speak out loud. What are some skills or habits you think an entrepreneur should have or develop? This is when I really want to be in a room face to face because it's like radio silence. Are there people responding in the chat? Deb, you're on mute. Can you hear?
Sorry, yes, there are people responding in the chat.
Okay,
So
I'm scared to touch it right now.
Vision, grit, a bias to action, perseverance, problem solving, tenacity, organizational skills, being a self-starter, good communication skills, communication.
Those are awesome. Yes, I think we could have had a few other people teach this workshop.
Yeah, well, and one thing I would add, Cari, just is that for you guys that are interns, everything that's described there are the types of qualities or characteristics you need to have in your internship experience. As you approach, you probably already know this. I see lots of heads shaking based on your experience after 1 week. You probably already have had this. These types of thoughts in terms of how you approach your experience working with the startup that you're working at. So very interesting.
It is. It is. I think this next slide, I'm going to give you some that we highlight in a lot of our programs. This is one of Sarah's slides also. And this is a great way of, I think, framing a mindset that is invaluable in the entrepreneurial or the startup world. Stubbornly optimistic. So you can definitely see that there is a little bit of a negative um, slant to this, because sometimes startups and sometimes entrepreneurs are optimistic when, hindsight, they shouldn't be. I was pretty optimistic as to, like, we're going to have this cute shop. Everybody's going to come there. They're going to buy art off the wall. They're going to buy other local artists things. They're going to buy, handmade things, which was great. But we learned really quick. I mean, it was a great perspective to have, but I didn't do any real research to that. I didn't do any customer discovery. I didn't even identify that there was a problem there, that there was actually a massive void missing in people's lives in Northwest Arkansas from, access to my cow paintings, because there wasn't. So it was eye opening. But I think learning through that you can pivot in the midst of it, and you've got to be pretty agile. And being optimistic is super important, and entrepreneurs are stubbornly optimistic, seeing failure as this top one as an opportunity to grow and an opportunity to make some changes and make some adjustments. So I think all of the ones you listed are absolutely there too. We're going to talk about, so stubbornly optimistic, improvising. And I think that's one that also is, we talked about different personalities and different levels of comfort. There are certain, I would say, musicians. These are both people who use their creative side of their brain. But there are definitely people that are much more comfortable in a symphony orchestra, playing in a really organized and technically detailed and, I would say, somewhat rote way. And then there is the jazz band that is just improvising all of their music. And I think as an entrepreneur, even if you could love going to the symphony and listening and highly appreciate the work and the effort that has been, and the professionalism. And you can also appreciate a jazz band, but you need to see yourself and your work in the jazz band. You need to see the improvision that a startup and navigating that would take. I don't know, I just love that analogy. And that's another one I stole from Sarah.
Will you go back to that real quick, Cari, that slide?
Yeah.
So when you think about those two mindsets that Cari showed previously on the slide before this, obviously one mindset generally tends to drive you more towards like the fixed mindset, which is more like the orchestra and the structured approach to music, and the growth mindset with jazz bands. If you've ever played an instrument, which I have not, cello, fourth grade, 3 weeks done. But with the jazz band, there's a lot of improvisation that happens as that comes to fruition, right? There's not necessarily always a plan in how the music is going to come out. And so if you think about a growth mindset and a fixed mindset, you guys may feel like, students wise, like you're maybe more one than the other. And the bottom line is, it's okay to not be completely have a growth, all the way on one end of the mindset, whatever to be on one, to have a fully growth mindset. A lot of us are right in the middle, right? But with a startup environment, you really have to recognize and at least honor or own the fact that things can be chaotic. And the point of this experience is to really challenge you to kind of, if you have a more fixed mindset about things, it's totally okay. Just recognize that, kind of try to challenge yourself a little bit as you go through this experience.
I love that. Yes.
Okay, sorry, go ahead, Cari.
Ditto. No, absolutely. this is a classic slide that we love, and if you've seen it, don't steal our thunder. But this is the top 10 reasons startups fail. And I don't know if all of the venture interns have already seen this. I
I have not.
know they haven't. Okay,
Some may
so
have.
these are some may have. Yeah, I mean, I know some people on here. Olivia, I'm sure, has seen this. Um, there is ignoring social media, failing to ask for help. You can see all of these. I would say lack of focus, 13 comes into play, 13% down there, and hiring poorly. Those are things that I feel like we've seen, startups because of that personality, that we like to try new things, as was in that those two head spaces, the growth mindset. Because you like to try new things as an entrepreneur, sometimes you lack some focus. You don't finish what you start, and you get easily distracted. So I felt that, definitely I felt that in my endeavors. Um, but there is a huge one, this green chunk. Does anyone have any idea what represents the like number one reason, the big green piece of the pie? And again, if you've already seen this chart, but if you have any idea as to what that green piece of pie represents, put it in the chat. Are there any answers? No. They're intimidated. Okay. The number one reason
If
that
you know,
startups,
unmute.
oh, do what?
Does anybody know the answer to this question?
Oh, sorry, I already clicked it.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah, I clicked the next slide, sorry. But the number one reason, 36% of startups fail because they have built something that nobody wants. And so in my experience, I would say, painting cows, I realized there were people out in the world that wanted to buy a cow painting. So I was, hyper focused. I'll paint cows. And I mean, I'll be honest, I've probably painted 300 cows. And because someone would buy it. And I responded to that problem. I wasn't trying to, build a business around painting cows. I did have some success. I was able to license some of those paintings and sell them to some, big box stores and make reproductions of them and prints. But it wasn't, I kind of went into that accidentally, but I did see something that there was a either lack of cow art on the market and people were willing to buy mine. So the other, on the flip point or the flip side of it, my experience with the store was we just knew everyone would want to spend, once a week in Fayetteville in a little shop just looking at art and buying local wares. So we came up with a solution to a problem that wasn't really there. We definitely didn't verify that it was there. And we really, really wanted that problem to be there and us to be the solution. And so, fortunately, we had an opportunity with that paint to make it work. But I would say the the mistake we made is we were committed to our solution and not our problem. And a real entrepreneur needs to fall in love with the problem, not the solution. And I would say, and Jeff Amaran, I know, is on this call. I mean, I'd say anybody, I think Phil might have been on it, and anybody who has worked in this space for very long knows this is probably the number one challenge. Um, I think people love a solution. They have an idea and they know it'll work. And taking the time to validate that idea and to validate, the business model of it. And I'll show you this next one. We call this like the Venn diagram, that we have that people want this, that the idea is even feasible. You can even do it. and that you can actually make more money than you spend, or if this was like a nonprofit impact focused endeavor, that you could have donors or investors that were convinced of the impact. So it has to have some kind of business viability. People have to be able to want it, and it has to be possible, technically feasible. And then right there in the middle, if there is overlap, that's when the magic happens, and your startup takes off, your idea takes off, and there's going to be a lot of effort and a lot of ideas that land somewhere in these unoverlapped circles. And I think as our office and talking specifically to students, we want you to know it's okay to land here. And it's okay to land there a lot, especially when you're in college, especially when you have access to these resources and these programs. Explore these problems that you know exist out there and look for solutions, because someday you might be in a you're going to find yourselves, all of you as students will find yourselves in many different roles, and it might not be the same role forever. You might be in a work for a large organization and then go out on your own. You might make the opposite change, go out on your own and then want the security of a more consistent job. I mean, I was my a sole proprietor, and now I work for the university. You might find yourself, I mean, in different roles in your journey, especially post college. These are people who are all entrepreneurs. You can have this mindset as a solopreneur. We talked about that. A small business owner, a change maker, a startup founder, more your traditional, like, let's scalable venture, or just found a startup. I'm saying that backwards. But this last one is an intrapreneur. This is one that we've added to the list. It's more like you can use this mindset within an organization. You could be working at a large organization and use this problem solving mindset. And that's really what we hope throughout the Venture Intern Program specifically, but all of our programs, that we are instilling in our students this problem solving mindset, and falling in love with the problem and not the solution. And that's really, right now, that's about, I think I've used more than my time, but we have a little bit of time for questions that I think Deb or several of us on this call could field. If any of you have questions around this content or anything else, what the best hills to sled on today are. Yeah.
Well, one thing I would add, there are a wealth of resources on our OEI YouTube channel, and lots of workshops. Lots of you have asked questions about Lean Canvas and learning more about startups. And there are a lot of workshops that we have already recorded by people like Cari and Jeff Amrine and Sarah, and these are all resources for you to review. They're great workshops and really foundational things to learn more about how you would go about starting a business. Again, we are not trying to encourage or drive you in that direction. Our goal with this program is really about helping you understand a startup environment and kind of being problem seekers and thinking about the problem and how to solve that problem and how to add value in a startup environment. So we'll share the link for Madison already did, for the YouTube page. And I would encourage you to kind of follow our not just these coffee talks, but our workshop schedule and plan, because there are a lot of new trainings and new things that we are offering all the time to help you learn more. So other questions that anybody has about what Cari shared today? or comments or feedback from those of you that are founders. We have a couple founders on the call.
You do. I'll plug on the YouTube channel. There is a bunch of different playlists. There's a playlist that we created that right now is labeled Flagship. We created it for the Flagship Name, Image, Likeness program that we helped pilot with the Razorback office this past summer. And we have a variety of videos on that playlist, some from Startup Junkie that Jeff and his team have produced. They are some really great condensed short takes, and they are great. They're easy to consume. And then there's also several in there that Karen Boston at the Walton College helped facilitate some instructors and professors there. So that's an actual, like, really excellent playlist on our YouTube channel to just kind of like, you know, get a first glance or, you know, dip your toes in what some of this content is.
All right.
No questions or comments?
Which is totally fine. I get the sense that maybe people are ready to go go sledding, which I am actually ready to go sledding today too. We'll stick around. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Cari, for sharing the content and your story of your entrepreneurial background. And thanks to everyone who joined today. We'll stick around for questions. Everyone have a great day. Enjoy the snow.
I think we could play. Can I plug one more thing, Deb?
Yeah, of course. Yep.
We have next week pitch camp, and it is on Thursday the 10th. It's 4 to 6. So, you know, we're talking about these ideas and problem solving. And then, you know, the steps I know Jeff Amrine put in the chat when we were talking about, you know, what kind of skills you need to be a entrepreneur. You've also got to be able to sell and pitch your idea to either a customer in your store or to a customer that you want to buy your medical device, or an investor, or maybe you think you might want to be in new venture development or just enroll in another pitch competition. So this workshop next week, face-to-face at the Brewer Hub, is we're going to hear from Jeff's going to help us, and Andrew Miles, who's another founder, entrepreneur in the area, and he's going to help us. And we've got a pitch coach that's going to do a workshop at the beginning, and she's going to be awesome. And Permjot's going to zoom in for a little bit from Canada. It is going to be great. And you guys will, you can take 3 different tracks. In the second half of the workshop, you can go to pitching to investors, pitching for competitions, or pitching to clients. And you're just going to really practice telling your story or the story of your startup. And I would encourage anybody who wants to attend. And I mean, I am going to attend and hope to get some things out of it too. But you can find all the information. You can register on our website under workshops and events. It'll take you right to our Eventbrite page, and it'll be great.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks.